Ruth and her jealous husband's ghost. Once upon a time in a small village in Nigeria, there lived a beautiful woman named Ruth. Ruth was so beautiful that everyone in the village loved her. She had big, bright eyes and a smile that could light up a room. Ruth was married to a man named Chike. Chike loved Ruth very much, but he was also very jealous. Whenever another man talked to Ruth or even looked at her, Chike would get very angry. He always wanted Ruth all to himself. One day, after a few years of marriage, something very sad happened. Chike died. Ruth was very sad and cried a lot. To make things worse, Chike's family came and took everything away from Ruth. They left her with nothing to raise their two young boys, Emeka and Toby. Life was very hard for Ruth and her sons. But Ruth was a strong woman, and she worked hard to take care of Emeka and Toby. After some time, a kind man named Femi started visiting Ruth. He was very nice to Ruth and her boys, and they liked him a lot. But something strange happened whenever Femi visited. The ghost of Chike would appear and slap Femi. Femi would get scared and run away. This happened with every man who tried to be friends with Ruth. The ghost of Chike was so jealous even after he died that he didn't want any man near Ruth. Ruth was very sad and didn't know what to do. She wanted to be happy and have someone to help her raise her boys, but Chike's ghost scared everyone away. One day Ruth met a pastor named Pastor Ade. Pastor Ade was a kind and wise man who helped many people. Ruth told Pastor Ade about her problem, and he promised to help her. Pastor Ade came to Ruth's house and prayed with her. He asked God to help Ruth and to make Chike's ghost go away. They prayed very hard and something amazing happened. Chike's ghost appeared, but Pastor Ade was not afraid. He told the ghost to leave Ruth alone and to go away forever. Chike's ghost got very angry, but Pastor Ade kept praying. Finally, with a loud shout, the ghost disappeared. Ruth felt a great peace in her heart. She thanked Pastor Ade and God for helping her. For the first time in a long while, Ruth felt free. She hoped that now she and her boys could live happily without being scared. With the ghost of Chike gone, Ruth felt a newfound freedom. She began to smile more and laugh with her boys, Emeka and Toby. The villagers noticed a change in Ruth and were happy to see her so cheerful again. Femi, the kind man who had been visiting Ruth, heard the news about the ghost being gone. He decided to visit Ruth once more, hoping that this time he wouldn't be scared away. When he arrived at Ruth's house, he was greeted with a warm smile. "Welcome, Femi," Ruth said, her voice filled with joy. "Please, come in." Femi sat down with Ruth and her boys, and they talked and laughed together. Ruth felt a happiness she hadn't felt in a long time. Emeka and Toby liked Femi too, and they played games with him in the yard. Days turned into weeks, and Femi's visits became more frequent. He helped Ruth with chores around the house and spent time teaching Emeka and Toby new things. It seemed like a new chapter was beginning for Ruth and her family. One evening, as the sun was setting, Ruth and Femi sat on the porch while the boys played nearby. Femi turned to Ruth and said, "Ruth, I care about you and your boys very much. I would like to be a part of your life, if you will have me." Ruth smiled and nodded. "I would like that very much, Femi. You have been so kind to us." But just as Ruth spoke, a cold wind blew through the yard. Ruth felt a shiver run down her spine. She looked around but saw nothing. Femi noticed her discomfort and gently held her hand. "Don't worry, Ruth. Whatever happens, we will face it together," he said. That night, Ruth had a strange dream. She saw Chike's ghost, but this time he looked sad instead of angry. "Ruth," he said, "I see now that you deserve to be happy. I will not trouble you anymore. Take care of our boys, and be happy with Femi." Ruth woke up feeling hopeful. She believed that Chike's ghost was finally at peace. However, strange things began to happen around the house. Doors would open and close on their own, and Ruth would hear whispers in the night. She started to wonder if Chike's ghost was really gone, or if there was something else at play. Ruth decided to visit Pastor Ade again. She told him about the strange occurrences. Pastor Ade listened carefully and said, "Ruth, it seems like there may be another spirit causing trouble. We need to find out what it wants and how to help it find peace." Ruth felt a mix of fear and determination. She knew she had to protect her boys and find a way to make her home safe again. Pastor Ade promised to come to her house the next day to investigate and pray. That night, as Ruth lay in bed, she prayed for strength and guidance. She knew that with Pastor Ade's help and her own courage, she could face whatever was haunting her home. The next day, Pastor Ade arrived at Ruth's house with a calm but serious demeanor. He brought with him a small group of church members to help with the prayers. Ruth welcomed them into her home, hoping this would finally bring peace. Pastor Ade and his group walked through each room, praying and sprinkling holy water. They sang hymns and asked for any spirits in the house to find peace and leave the family alone. As they reached the boys' room, a cold breeze swept through, and the door slammed shut behind them. Pastor Ade raised his hands and began to pray louder. "In the name of God, any restless spirits must find peace and depart from this house." The group joined in, their voices filling the room with strength and faith. Suddenly, a soft, gentle voice echoed through the room. It was Chike's ghost. "I am sorry for all the pain I caused. I see now that my jealousy was wrong. I only wanted to protect Ruth, but I understand that my actions have hurt her. Please forgive me." Pastor Ade spoke to the ghost with kindness. "Chike, your family needs peace. It is time for you to rest and let them live in happiness. Go with God's blessing." With a final whisper of thanks, Chike's ghost faded away, and the room filled with warmth and light. The strange occurrences stopped, and a peaceful silence settled over the house. Ruth felt a great weight lift from her shoulders. She thanked Pastor Ade and the church members for their help. Femi, who had been waiting outside with Emeka and Toby, rushed in and hugged Ruth. "It's over," he said. "You're free." Ruth and Femi continued their relationship, and eventually they got married. Femi became a loving father to Emeka and Toby, and the family lived happily. They never forgot Chike, but they remembered him with kindness and forgiveness.
Moral lessons.
Love should not be possessive. Chike's jealousy caused much pain even after his death. True love involves trust and allowing your loved one to be happy and free. Forgiveness brings peace. Ruth's willingness to forgive Chike's ghost helped bring peace to her family. Holding on to anger and resentment only prolongs suffering. Community and faith can provide strength. Ruth found support in Pastor Ade and the church members. In difficult times, seeking help from your community and having faith can lead to resolution and peace. Courage in facing challenges. Ruth's determination to protect her family and seek help shows that facing challenges with courage can lead to positive outcomes. Moving on. It's important to let go of the past and embrace new beginnings. Ruth's ability to move forward with Femi allowed her to find happiness again.